Hey guys, so this is Shashank from Brew Market, and today, so it's a very special day for me too, and we have one of the most amazing speakers, one of the most amazing authors, one of the most one of the best designers the world has ever seen there in our podcast. So I actually had a very huge kind of speech built up for you, but everything just vanished once I hit record. So
That's
this
so
is what
funny.
we are going with.
It's good, man. You told me before we started that you were a little nervous, and
Yes.
Shashank and I have been friends for like more than 3 years now that we've been friends, and so it's so good to finally podcast and create content with you. You were growing your Instagram when I first started growing my Instagram,
Yeah.
and then you bailed on the entire platform. You're like, I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. What was the reasoning behind you leaving the platform? Was this taking too much of your energy or emotional energy, or what was it?
So basically, I got basically it's just addiction, I guess. So I couldn't control myself from just making sure the content is just perfect for the algorithm. So
Yeah.
I felt like I lost a part of that designer or creator in me who wanted to actually do something cool. So that's when I decided, nope, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm saying goodbye.
It's good. It's smart. And you have an agency going, so it's not like Instagram was everything for your business. For me, where my whole mission right now, or my whole phase of my career, is to mentor creatives, creative entrepreneurs, and help them run successful businesses. And so my exact core audience are the people who I build relationships with through my social media channels. So I'm stuck in it. But when I owned my agency and we were doing client work, we didn't really do very much social media marketing for our agency, just a trickle of stuff, but it wasn't like the primary way that we could build our business. So
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, times were different back then, so it's been very
Yeah,
long
times
since
were
even
different
sold your
back then.
agency.
Times were different back then. Yeah.
I wish I was old enough to be born that age where I didn't have to worry about the social pressure. But yeah,
I know.
there is something which we can't
It is
control.
a different world for sure today.
Yes, this is a
Yeah.
different world.
Yeah.
And the topic we've chosen right now is something like taking this to the whole new level, which none of us were remotely even prepared for. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so just in case for people who don't know you, I can just give them a like a one small like 2-line intro of who you are.
Great. You want me to give a little intro?
I mean,
Yeah.
I can do it, but if you
I know,
choose
I'll do it. I'm here. I know.
Okay.
I know all of the information. So, my name is Michael Janda. I've been a creative entrepreneur for a lot of years. I'm in year 23 since I started my agency, and it's been an exciting run. So I started freelancing in 2002. I guess it makes that 21 years. I started freelancing in 2002. My first few clients were some of my friends from Fox Studios, where I worked before I started freelancing. I was a creative director at Fox. Started freelancing for my friends who were working at ABC Family and Sony and Warner Brothers. Those were my first few clients. And then over time, it just grew and grew and grew through referrals and relationships. Started doing work for NBC and ABC television and several different divisions at Disney. We're doing a lot of work for Google and YouTube. Just had a great agency run, doing awesome, cool work, and I'm so grateful for that. And then I sold my agency in 2015 to pursue what I'm doing now. I love to mentor and train creatives. It was the thing that I figured out that I loved the most in this career. I loved hiring a junior designer and helping them produce work at a senior designer level, and I just get so much joy out of that mentoring piece, and I love what I do now. So I share a lot of social media content. I have written a couple of books that have been published internationally, and then have online courses and coaching services, and it's just so fun to help creatives have success in their businesses.
I mean, so whatever you're doing right now is kind of public service to the industry. So, being in the industry so long, so whatever input that you're telling is like people can't even measure the level of importance the content that you give out. So yeah, we are all eternally grateful for that. So talking about your books, so for people once again who don't know what those books are, so one is Burn Your Portfolio and one more is the Psychology of Graphic Design Pricing that I have with me right now. So once again, so for people who are like a long time follower for Brew Market and my blog, I'm a very minimalist person, so there are only a few material questions I own, and this is kind of my Bible, Bhagavad Gita, Quran, or whatever you may call it. So basically, when I started out, I went to Amazon and searched for design books or design business books, and Burn Your Portfolio popped up, and I got both of these, and till date, this is one of the only things that I like value so much, because like
so
whenever I
good,
have any kind of doubts, I just go through this. So I mean, so if you are a creator, like a video editor, designer, it doesn't matter. If you want to make money as a creator, so if you want to know how to run a business, so the Psychology of Graphic Design Pricing is the book for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that has become a good resource for you. That book started. I was just going to write a blog post about my pricing, how I priced work, and when I started writing it, it was like, my gosh, if I say this, then I have to have them understand all of this, and then if I have them understand all of that, I have to have them understand all of this, and that one blog post ended up becoming a 200-page book, all about the mindset you have to have and all of the different variables that affect the way that you price work. And I basically reverse engineered my brain on how I priced all of the creative services that I offered at my agency for all those years.
See, because as you said, like there are a lot of amazing creators, designers, video editors. There are a lot of talented people there, but one thing all these people struggle with is like finance part, because these people are mostly creators. They work with their creativity and everything. So money has always been a mystery to a lot of these people. So yeah, this is an amazing resource for anyone. So if you want to spend money on yourself or your business to make more money, basically just get this book. So
That's good. Thank you.
So yeah, let's move a little bit from there. So
Okay.
let's get to the topic today. So we are going to talk about branding and how it's going to evolve with AI and everything. So that's the topic of our conversation today. So just let's start with like how branding was back in your days, like back when you had your agency and everything. So what was branding back then?
So I think branding back then was all about business. We didn't talk a lot about personal brands and things. It was branding for a business. And my first real big exposure to branding was the job that I had before I worked at Fox. I was a creative director for a children's toy and book company, and we built a brand and a digital environment, like an online game playground called OKid. And we branded that from the start and from scratch, and discovered the name and built out this whole environment. It was kind of like a Club Penguin before Club Penguin. And that was my first big exposure to branding. But then when I went to Fox, we were doing a big rebrand of Fox Kids website, and that was my first experience with these in-depth style guides, developing a style guide and understanding the brand adjectives and brand description and all of these different pieces about defining what you want somebody to feel or think when you talk about a business entity. And then we did the same thing for Fox Family brand a couple of years after that, and built out a whole big style guide for that. And so those were my two kind of initial exposures to branding on a big level. But it was all business. It was all about business branding. And today, and I know this is jumping ahead and how things have changed a little bit, but today, the idea of branding, business branding, and the overlap with personal branding is so they're so enmeshed in business. And to give you a couple of examples, you can't talk about Tesla without thinking about Elon Musk.
Yep.
You can't talk about Amazon without thinking about Jeff Bezos. These people are just so intertwined. Their personal brand and their business brand are so intertwined. And I think that has a lot to do with social media and this exposure that we all have to the people behind the brands. Steve Jobs and Apple was probably one of the biggest versions of that. He came to the forefront at Apple, and he was always in the forefront, but the real big merge of Steve Jobs and Apple's brand being synonymous came out of all of his Macworld videos of displaying the new iPhone and the new iPad and things. And when we think of things like, the release of the iPhone, everybody in their brain envisions Steve Jobs in a black turtleneck standing on the stage with a black background holding up the iPhone. That's what we think in our brain when we think iPhone release. That's the image that we get. And that's because of this overlap between a personal brand and a business brand that started to really happen heavily with him. So I think that there's some changes that have happened, and now businesses have to be thinking about the personal brand that represents their business brand because they're so synonymous today.
Yeah, I mean, so because as you said, in the past few years, so personal brand is inseparable from the business brand, and any brand that doesn't have a face, it's really hard to sell. It's become really hard to sell. So yeah, if you're someone who's looking forward, to build a brand or to launch your own startup, so one thing you have to look is to put your face in the front, so that people recognize who you are and what you do and everything. See, even if we take Indian startups for example, I know you don't know a lot of names. Literally any single startup, at least 75% of the unicorns in India, they have a face in front of it. So it's very hard to sell something, even in a country with a billion population, it's really hard to sell something that doesn't have a face in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you said, right now face is synonym with branding everywhere. So I guess that's something we all have to make sure of it.
I think it's the tip. It's the tip for the takeaway for the people that are watching this is that your face. It's so easy. You got to be the face of your brand. You can't just rely on this little logo mark to be the face of the brand. You have a huge opportunity to become synonymous with your business brand. And the smaller your business is, the more important that is, because human to human is the purchase on smaller business entities. It's human to human. There are only a few businesses that get away with not having a face attached to it, and a few major businesses. Coca-Cola is an example. Worldwide, if I say Coca-Cola, we don't have a human that we immediately think of when we think of Coca-Cola. But it's one of the few. It's one of the few. Even businesses like Nike understand the importance of having a face attached to a business brand so much that they go and sponsor all of the athletes all around. If we say Nike and golf, we think of Tiger Woods. If we think of Nike and basketball, we think of LeBron James, or some of the older people like me think of Michael Jordan still. You think of tennis and you think of Serena Williams because Nike has purchased their face to be this synonym for their logo brand or their visual brand identity. And but you, Shashank, you have an agency that you're running. And you don't have to pay somebody millions of dollars to be the face of your brand. You can be the face of your brand. And you're doing that through things like this, doing podcasts and writing your blog. I get your blog articles that come to me, and you're writing your blog and dropping into my email bin every week, and I know it's you, and you're humanizing your brand, and it makes it a lot easier for a potential client to buy from you because they begin to trust you as a human behind the company.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you're saying is exactly right. I don't have anything to add up on this. So, yeah, so basically just humanize your company, though. That's one thing that is something you have to take away from this part. So, yeah, moving a little bit forward. So, what do you think branding has become now? After this AI has come in, we've seen the rise of ChatGPT, DALI, and all these, open AI tools and everything. So,
Yeah.
how do you think AI is going to change branding, and what do you think the future holds? Because I see in your YouTube you made already like 5 or 6 other videos on
Yeah.
YouTube regarding all this, and so what are your thoughts on this?
I'm doing a lot of experimentation right now because AI is all the rage, and what I realize that people are sharing are just lists. They're saying, "Hey, here's 10 AI tools that you need to use in your creative business," and they share the list of links.
Yeah.
And what I realize is nobody's sitting there going and teaching you how it actually applies. How can you actually apply this to your creative business? And is it even any good for your creative business? So I started by making a couple of videos where I used ChatGPT and Midjourney and some web design builders, no code builders like Editor X, to try and create a brand from nothing, and then show how we can use these tools to help us generate ideas, create visuals, and ultimately build some marketing materials for a brand. So I have a couple of videos that relate to that. But then I have a new wave of videos, and I had one that just launched this morning, and I had one that launched last week, that were more concentrated on specific aspects of branding like naming. There are a lot of artificial intelligence name generators out there that can generate a name for your business. And I experimented with, I think, 8 different naming tools. And not one of those tools took into account the competitive landscape or who's the target audience. They don't even ask you with prompts. They don't say, okay, who's the target customer of this brand? And then you describe the target customer. And then who are the competitors of this brand? And you put in your competitors. And then it spits out a name for you that differentiates from the competitors and is attractive to the target customer. None of the AI naming tools do that. They just say, what kind of business is it? And put some adjectives in that describe it, and then they spit out a bunch of names. So they're completely neglecting the importance of speaking to a specific customer and differentiating in a competitive landscape, which is something that you have to do in naming. And it was the same thing with these logo generators. I had a video released this morning about AI logo generators. And can they generate a logo that you could actually use? And not one of them asks a question about who's the target customer and who are the competitors. And so how can you create a brand without understanding those two things? You're just creating an aesthetic logo. You're not creating a brand that's going to speak to a specific customer. And that's at the heart of real branding. It's more than just designing an aesthetic logo that's pretty and that, has good kerning and great color choices and stuff. It's way more than that. And that's where these AI tools are failing right now. They just don't give you the intelligence component that goes into branding. And there is no empathy that also needs to go into branding as well. And so in my research of using these tools and experimenting and creating these videos, I've found that, man, it's designer, your job's not as at risk as what some of the designers think. They're afraid of these tools that they're going to take their design job, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon. Now, in the future, of course, in the future, as these tools get smarter and smarter and start asking the right questions, yeah, there is going to be some taking of creative people's jobs, but it's not tomorrow or the next. And for those of you that are working right now, you're pretty safe for a long run here, even with these AI tools coming in.
I mean, yeah, see, first of all, to be honest, I am a bit relieved to hear that. So,
Yeah.
that is one thing for sure. And once again, with the rise of technology and everything, so we used to complain about not having a good tool to cut out photos, and Photoshop came up with the Smart Select and everything.
Yep.
So basically, this is just another tool that right now designers can use, like creators can use to make your content better. So obviously you can take suggestions from these, but ultimately it's going to be the human to put in the final touch and everything. So I think, as you said, just go on.
No, go ahead. You're going to say something else.
So right now, as you said, we don't have to worry about AI replacing our jobs, but soon it will, so we have to be prepared for that too.
Yeah, you just have to watch it. For now, AI becomes a tool for the designer to use. The clients aren't going to a business name generator and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna save myself $10,000 on branding or coming up with a name for my funded startup." They get $10 million of funding to start their business, and they're not gonna go and say, "Oh, I'll just get a name from the name generator." No, that's not happening. But a creative person who is hired by that business could use a name generator to help spark ideas that they eventually evolve into the right name to choose for that client. But it takes a creative person to use that tool as what it is. It's a tool. And I love the example that you use, the Photoshop, the Smart Select tool. Like you can just drag over and it selects the foreground object as an example. And it does it for you. And most of the time it's pretty good. You have to adapt a couple little things here and there, but for things like YouTube thumbnails, man, cutting out a person to stick them on a YouTube thumbnail with a green background instead of like what's behind me right here, that's so much easier than it ever was. And it's artificial intelligence that's doing that. And we've seen this happen, or people that are as old as me have been doing this for 20-something years. We've seen the entire evolution of these tools coming in that make things a little easier, a little easier, a little easier. Every iteration of Photoshop has some new type of artificial intelligence, but it didn't ever replace designers. It just made our jobs a little bit easier in some things and a little bit higher quality in some things, because the artificial intelligence is helping. One thing that can put some designers at ease, look at filters for photos, photography. Instagram has been out for a decade something now, right? And Instagram has always had these cool little filters that you can easily just click, and now your photo looks vintage, and now it has a vignette around the edges and things. Well, vignettes used to happen by putting the lens on and shooting it a certain way at a certain aperture or whatever, so that you get vignetting, or the way they develop the film or whatever, so that you get vignetting. But now you can just push a button and get a vignette on your photo. But are people still working as photographers? Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
And when you have a wedding, do you just tell everybody, "Hey, just we didn't get a photographer because we don't need them anymore because the AI is so good. No, just take photos and apply the vignette tool and some vintage styling and then email them to us." You don't do that. Nobody's doing that. They're still hiring photographers. And the photographers are using things like Lightroom to modify the photos, perfect those photos before they send them to the client. So the work quality is getting better because the photographers can produce better work because of artificial intelligence that's helping. But anybody can take a decent photo, but we haven't replaced photographers because we've had filters on Instagram. It hasn't. And it's gonna be the same thing with design. You're not gonna replace humans in design. In the short run, you're not going to replace humans in design. In the long run, it's ridiculous for us to think that you're not going to be able to push a button and say, "I have a target customer that is this, and here's you won't even have to put the competitors. The AI will go and figure out the competitors, figure out how to differentiate, and it'll have all of that intelligence, but it doesn't have it now. And so there's got to be human involved. The same way with photography, Instagram hasn't replaced professional photographers. In fact, there are probably more professional photographers working now than ever before in the history of the planet. And AI tools and good cameras, man. We all got. I know you have an iPhone because I get your blue when we send DMs. Yours are blue. So the camera on this is way better than the camera that I had when I started my agency by a million miles. But it hasn't changed the fact that we still need professional photographers.
Yeah. So see, as you mentioned, so right now AI is in a level where it is going to be just used as a tool to make our work better. But we have to make sure like with each technological advancement, as you mentioned, some people are going to go out of jobs, and there is going to be a rise in the new different kind of jobs that comes with the new technology.
Yes.
Like when cars were invented, people who owned horses, who run chariots, they did go out of job, but people eventually learned how to drive cars and they became drivers. So see, it's stuff like that. Just because email and messaging and texting were invented, it doesn't mean postal department is out of job right now. There are people who are still working in the postal department, and it's fully functioning.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, there are some things that AI can't replace humans right now. But one thing I would like to talk about is so I recently read an article saying someone from the Brad project that Google was working on. So some engineer came out of that, and he gave a public statement saying that I left the Brad project because I think AI is developing all these emotions and everything. So it's trying to become real human. So let's assume for now. Let's say we can get an AI tool where as you said, we can feed in all those factors that affect the brand, the target audience, the demographics, and everything. So do you ever think there will be a chance when a company or someone who knows how to use the internet can basically build a brand out of it?
Yeah, I think it's naive to think that we're not going to hit that at some point. And there are tools that already have been, Google has been getting our information and analyzing our patterns of behavior for the last 20 years. Google has had that information on us. This is why they give you Gmail for free, so that they can know what you're doing and know what you're talking about. And
exactly.
So it's naive for us to think that level of knowledge isn't going to be super powerful at some day. Take Facebook, for example. This is all the value in Facebook as a business is based on the data that they have on all the people. And the reason it's so valuable is because you can go to Facebook and run an ad and say, I want somebody who likes puppies, and I want them to be in Jakarta, and I want them to be age 18 to 20, females age 18 to 20, and males age 25 to 27. You can put in such close thing, and I want them to love Starbucks. And so that's my definition. And now the AI that manages the ad performance at Facebook can go and find those people. And it's so effective. And so with that data, it's only a matter of time before these AI tools become smart enough to ask the right questions to us, or they're already built that way. You go in and run a Facebook ad, it asks you those kinds of things. Where are the people, and where blah, 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 and where are they located? What are their demographics? And it asks you all these things, and then it goes and finds them and shows them the ads that you want to show. That's all artificial intelligence. Now, has that taken away jobs of media buyers? There's probably more media buyers today than there ever have been on the face of the planet ever. And you still have to use the tool effectively, and creative people and strategic creative thinkers are the ones who are going to be the ones who use those tools most effectively for the long term to come, decades to come. it's still going to be creative people, but you have to know the tool as a creative. You have to be the one using it. And the creatives who are sticking their head in the sand right now, they don't want AI, they're mad about AI taking design jobs or whatever, they're mad about it. You're going to be the ones who struggle in the future. You got to say, this is here to stay. I'm going to go and learn this tool, and I'm going to get good at it, and then I'm going to use it in my creative business to provide better results for my clients. If you're saying that, then your job is much, much safer than the people who are running from AI and mad about it right now.
As you mentioned, the key takeaway from this is to, you have to adapt to what is gonna come. And yeah, as you said, if you get stuck in the past, and it's very hard for any creator or just basically anyone in their old field, you'll be replaced by better technologies soon. Basically, even when Amazon started, the amount of people that worked on warehouses is right now is very minimal. So they have technologies and machineries to take care of all those things. So ultimately, it's up to the humans where we have to take the next step, to make sure we are more competitive in the environment, in the business environment. So yeah, that's one thing we have to make sure of it.
Yeah.
And I would like to stress on one more thing. Like, so you mentioned Wix, Editor X and by Wix and all these things.
Yeah.
Right? So just building upon that, like just because there are website builders, that doesn't mean it has replaced like coded websites. So a lot of people still prefer to hand code websites because they feel like we can own the website no matter what. So a company might go out of business, but HTML, CSS, or the language you use in your website, that won't go out of business. So that's one thing that I'd like to talk about. And so one thing I'd like to know is like basically back when you started, you had to hand code everything, right?
Yeah.
So there was not a time when you can use any builders or anything. I don't think there were even this Xcode kind of fix to even correct course. Yeah.
Dreamweaver came out. Dreamweaver's not a builder per se. I mean, you still have to code it. You still have to code in Dreamweaver. So, but Dreamweaver, which is now owned by Adobe, used to be Macromedia back when it came out, and it was the first platform that tried to make hand coding stuff easier. But yeah, so I like that you brought this up, because this is one of the adaptations that I saw happen in my exact career. So pre no code builders, or pre WordPress themes even. So you take WordPress themes before around 2007, 2008. WordPress was just a blog builder. That's all it was. And when we started using WordPress as a CMS, along with everybody else who started using WordPress as a CMS, there was resistance in the market. People thinking, why are you using WordPress? That's a blog engine, and you're using it to build websites. Well, who's laughing now? Because the majority of the entire internet uses WordPress as the back-end content management tool. We saw that change happening, and we adapted to it. But what happened in my business is that pre-2008, 2009, and WordPress started to emerge as a CMS in 2007 or so, we were doing a lot of little brochure websites. Websites that's just like the home page and about the company page, contact page, and maybe services or something like that. These brochure websites, we called them. And those kinds of sites were a lot of money for us. We had lots of those happening. We were building them for businesses. We were building them for TV shows and movies, websites and things for some of our Hollywood clients. We were building a lot of that stuff. What happened 2008, 2009, you started to have things like Squarespace emerge and Wix emerge as these no-code template builders, and they actually looked pretty good. Squarespace, especially at the start, looked good. Wix didn't look good until 3 or 4 or 5 years later, but Squarespace looked good. Like the themes looked pretty. Aesthetically, they worked right from the start, and that was Squarespace's position. And it started to take away these brochure websites for my business, which used to be like 30% of all our revenue were brochure websites. But what happened to my business? We started billing the biggest years we ever had. Because we started doing enterprise level websites. These mega websites that we would work on, design, build, launch, and it's a 6-month timeline to build out these mega websites for clients on a custom coded WordPress as a back-end system website. Or we would use Drupal and some of these other CMSs that were out at the time and still are today. So the brochure website projects went away due to Squarespace and Wix taking that market share. But the enterprise level websites were still there. And so our average cost of a website, probably pre-2009, average cost of a website was probably like 12 grand. And post 2009, the average cost of a website with us was probably $50,000. And we were doing $100,000, $200,000, a $500,000 project, website project for a client. They were all these massive scale enterprise businesses, and we were billing more money than we ever had, even though 30% of our business went away due to template building tools like Squarespace and Wix. So looking at this, was it better or worse for my business that those things went away due to artificial intelligence? Well, in the end, it was actually better. I billed more money and had bigger profits than I ever had before. It forced my business to have to pivot to something that was better for us. And that's one of the things you got to look at with all this AI stuff. Look around, look for the opportunity. What is it not replacing? And then focus on selling that to your customers, to your clients. And you probably have a bigger business than you have right now doing lower end, more production level work that the AI is going to take away.
So yeah, so as you mentioned, pivoting, so that is something, like any business has to adapt, with the rise of, not just AI, with the rise of any other technology. So pivoting is something that you have to do. So as my personal experience, so I've been freelancing for almost 7 years now. So back when I started, I didn't do anything apart from making an Instagram carousel or something like that. Okay, so when I started, that was the one thing that I knew everyone in India wanted. So everyone wanted to make good carousels on Instagram, and that is one thing everyone wanted, and I started with that. And later on, after making a like a good amount of money, so I started as a sports designer. And back then in India, sports design was not that much of a value. But right now, if you look at it, every major sports team has a huge social media team and everything. But back then it wasn't much of value. So I used to work with like few companies and very small companies that used to run the sports blog and everything. So I used to work for them. So that's when I later on realized. So actually, this is one thing. I'm not even joking. So that is when I got this book, Psychology of Graphic Design Pricing, and that's when I realized. Branding, not just branding, just making logos for business will yield more money than what I'm making right now. So I found out this harsh truth. So basically, if I make one logo every single month, that that is more than 70% of the revenue that I make from the Instagram post if I do work for one whole month.
Yeah.
So my perspective entirely changed.
Yeah.
So I just told all my clients, I gave them months notice. So I told them, okay, I'm moving on. So I made sure I had some good amount of money in my bank account. So I started working on pretty logos and everything. Yeah. So that's when with all the resource and everything. So basically I learned this from the internet. So every single designer can draw pretty logos. So it's just a matter of someone who can, like it's about picking the one that works for the business, right? So that is more valuable than drawing any single pretty logo. So, as you know from experience, so you would have worked on, I don't know what the situation was with you, but I'm pretty sure you would have worked with at least one person who's a better designer than you.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, so many that were better designers than me. So many. Yeah. So basically, that's when I realized, okay, so making money is not about doing pretty logos. It's about making sure what pretty logo works for the business. So that's when I moved from designing to consulting. So I kept pivoting in just for 7 years when there wasn't nothing much to change about. I could still make money making Instagram posts. Yeah.
So it's not very difficult to make money making. Yeah, you can make good money if you're living in India and I'm getting clients from US, UK and everywhere. Yeah. I can make good money from just doing Instagram posts. But right now, what I'm doing right now is I pivoted from here to here where I can work at my own comfort. If I have to attend a consulting call, I can. If I don't want to, I don't have to. So like even for a small business, or if you're an individual freelancer also, so you have to pivot according to what the the market needs are. As you said, it is about going to the one that can't be replaced. So as of now, I can't see AI giving business advice for people. So of course it can pick which stock gave the most returns in the past 10 years. Yeah, it can do that because it has all the data and everything. But it can't predict which stock will yield the best return.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that is something every business have to learn. Like pivoting whenever it is required. So if you pivot before the market is there, that you are a success, right? So basically, if you are predicting the market trend, that makes you a success. So yeah, okay. So I have one more interesting question for you.
Yeah.
So let's assume you are running your agency right now, and you are given a task to brand a company or something. So how would you use that AI tool right now? So would you take references from that? Would you use that?
Here's my advice to every single creative entrepreneur out there. Sit down at your desk and open your web browser and your email like you already do. Click to open Photoshop or whatever your design tool is of choice, and then open a web browser window with ChatGPT in it, and use ChatGPT as your ultimate brainstorming partner throughout your day. The ultimate brainstorming partner. It's not going to give you all the answers, and it's not going to make your decisions for you. But post on there, say, what are the top 10 most used colors for soda brands? Because you're going to brand a soda company. So you're going to design identity for a soda company. What are the top 10 colors that soda brands use? Or how many pizza restaurants are there in New York City? And you ask it that because you have a client who's a pizza restaurant in New York City that wants you to do some work for them. It's that kind of brainstorming, that kind of information that tool can just spit out to you all day long, and you should have it open. It's shameful if you don't, because it's so right there, accessible to you. And is ChatGPT going to be the one, or is Google's AI that's on the brink of launching going to be the one? I'm kind of excited about the Google one just because it has all of the search data that we have available too. So I think that's going to be something to reckon with for ChatGPT and Microsoft. But the point I'm making is it's your brainstorming partner. It is, especially if you're a solopreneur and you're just in there grinding by yourself. Man, open it up and ask it questions. Ask it for feedback and thoughts and data that can help stimulate you for new ideas to benefit your clients. That's how you should look at these AI tools today.
So yeah, so basically use whatever tools you have to give the best output possible.
Yeah.
So that is something we all have to learn. And as you mentioned, Google's data and everything, like it has the recent data of the last article that's published on the internet. So yeah, of course they have a major advantage over there. So see, for people who are worried about AI taking over design jobs and everything, so there is one thing people have to worry about is the SEO industry. So it's going to drastically change once Google launches it's Brad or something, whatever they're going to name it. It's going to drastically change because people don't want to click on like 20 different articles, search through everything. They don't want that answer. So right now they want just to give a prompt and ask someone, like asking Siri what is the bull score or what is the latest score. Like they want to know answers just like that. So yeah, that is going to be a huge thing. So we're all excited for that. Yeah. So that is one thing, we're all excited for that. And speaking of AI to how you use in branding and everything, so do you use AI to create your content right now? So the content you're putting out on your social platforms, do you use them right now?
No, I don't. Most of my content comes from people asking me a question, and then I go and think back on my career and think, okay, what did I do to solve that question that I'm being asked? What did I do to solve that in my career history? And then I make my content based on that. I don't do research for the content that I offer. I've never looked up something like 10 branding tips for designers. I've never done a search for that and then found somebody else's content and then repurposed that as my content. I've never done that ever. It all still just comes from my brain. But what I do use AI for, and have been for the past month or so as I've started to experiment with this, is write 5 alternate hook ideas for this title. And so I'm going to post a video on YouTube as an example. So I'll write the title that I came up with, like, will AI logo name generators steal design jobs? That's my title. And then I'll go and ask ChatGPT, write 5 alternate hooks for this title. And I'll see what it gives me, or 10 alternate hooks. And I'll see what it gives me. And most of the time, it sparks an idea for me that I change in my original title and use in the title that I end up going with. That's how I use it right now. Not for content, but more importantly for idea sparking of pivots to what I'm already writing.
Yeah. So yeah, someone wants to learn or just wants to know how to use AI, all these tools in your content creation journey. Yeah, this is the answer to it. And okay, so one thing that back in the days on Instagram, so I had this very one thing that kept bothering me. Okay, so even when I started, I drifted from just posting posters that I made for my clients, from my brands and everything. So I pivoted to telling people what, basically teaching or sharing knowledge, as you may say it.
Yeah.
So, but obviously, there is not even comparison in this. There is a difference between what you post as, advice and what I post as the stuff I learned. There's obviously a huge jump between all these things. So, right now, do you think it's good for a designer or a creator or whatever there is, to start creating content this way rather than just showcasing their work? So, is there a benefit or disadvantage to that?
There's no. Okay, so first thing, I think that you should share what you're passionate about, and don't just share educational content because everybody else is sharing educational content and you think you need to follow the trend. Don't do that. Don't. Instead, share what you love the most. Share what you're passionate about, and if it is educating other designers, then educate other designers. But if it is educating your clients, then educate your clients. If it's not educating anybody, but rather showcasing the work that you do, then showcase the work that you do. Share what you're passionate about. Don't follow a trend because it's a trend. You'll hate it. You'll hate it. My biggest passion is educating creatives. That's my passion, and that's what I share, and I love it. But not everybody has that passion. So that's the first thing, is pick the passion and let your content reflect that. The next thing is that it doesn't matter who is in your audience in the eyes of a potential client. What matters is that you have influence. So if you're sharing educational content to designers and your entire audience is other designers, and you're sitting there thinking, well, am I going to get clients from this? Well, when you attract a client, they'll look at your social media and they'll see, wow, they have 7,000 followers. That's great. Huh. They must be trustworthy in their industry. People trust them. They must be a thought leader. And all of a sudden, your brand position is higher in the perception of the client, just because you have an audience, even though that audience is not a bunch of other potential clients. And so your audience size only matters in that it gives you a better perception in the eyes of potential clients when they are shopping you out. But it doesn't really matter who is in that audience. Now, don't buy bots and put them in your audience just so that it looks like you have an audience, because everybody knows when you have 10,000 followers and you get 3 likes on an image, that all your followers are bots. Don't do that, because that just destroys any value that you'd have in the eyes of the client. You lost them. So build real people, but do it by sharing what you're passionate about, and don't worry so much about it attracting the right client for your business. Now that can be valuable, if you're a branding expert for pizza restaurants, and you share tips for other pizza restaurants on how they can brand their business better, and that's all you focus on sharing, then yeah, you're going to attract pizza restaurant owners to follow your account because they can learn from it. So there is a way to attract potential clients through the platform, but I don't know if that even should be the focus. I think the focus is just pick what you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about it, you're going to hate the grind of sharing social media content. It's miserable. You're never finished. You can get 10 posts ahead, and then every day that goes by, now you're 9, now you're 8, now you're 7, and then you're having to scramble and getting this content churn. It's miserable. If you don't really deeply love what you're sharing, you're going to hate the pressure of building a social platform.
Yeah, to be honest, you just gave me the answer that I've been all along wanting. So whenever people ask me why I left the platform, I think this is the answer right there. So back then I started doing something which I wasn't passionate about. But right now, after starting Brew Market and everything, I wanted to make sure, because down the line I wanted to become a teacher. So I don't know if I'll go take classes in schools or something, but I want to teach people what I know. So basically, let's educate people around me. So let it be basic education or, educating them as a designer, that's different. So I want to educate, and this is my way of saying thank you to all the internet resources that has helped me to become a better person, better creator or whatever. So one more thing. So what is that one major learning, as a designer or a creative director that someone else has given you? Like, what is that one thing that stuck with you?
There's so many things. I'll give you probably the one that made the biggest difference in my business came from the book, The E-Myth, Michael Gerber, and it is the one simple phrase that systems run the business, people run the systems. And man, I took that to heart, and I created systems for everything in my business, and then the people that I hired ran the systems. It was checklists, like you're building a website, you follow this checklist. You're emailing a client to deliver the final files, you follow this template email. It was a system for every single thing that we did, everything that I could systemize. And that's how big businesses run and how small businesses run without stress and trauma. They do it by having a systematic business. And I think that's the thing that probably made the biggest difference in my business, and it's a thing that a lot of creative entrepreneurs struggle with because they're so organic creative that they struggle with this methodical, systematic style of behavior that you really have to have in place to be able to succeed to your fullest measure as a creative entrepreneur.
Yeah. So just building on what you just said. So what are the, what are a few tips that you would like to give to, designers or, not just designers, so basically people who want to get into this creative space?
Okay, a few tips. The first one, build relationships with as many people as you can. It's the relationships that get you the opportunities. Shashank and I are here right now. We had a relationship on Instagram 3-something years ago. When he left the platform, he messaged me and said, hey, I want to keep in touch. Can we keep in touch? And I was like, sure, man, because we used to DM on Instagram. So he has had my cell phone, and over the years, it's been checking in email or checking in instant messages. So he'll message me sometimes, and he's kept that relationship going. And then a month or two ago, you said, hey, you want to be on my podcast? And I was like, sure, because we have this history of relationship. If we didn't have that and you were just messaging me, texting me out of the blue, I would have been like, I don't know. But it was the relationship over time that built trust and makes an opportunity for us to talk. And it's the same thing with client opportunities. You've got to build relationships with as many people as you can, and those relationships, as you foster them, become clients and they become referrals for your business. So that one is hugely important. The next thing that I would say is soak up as much education as you can. There is stuff everywhere. I share tons of free content that is valuable content, contract clauses and sales processes and just detailed, actionable things, scripts, like how do you reply to a client about this or that thing? What do you say? I share all that kinds of content, and so do many other people in the industry that are trying to just give back to the industry that they grew to love through their career. So soak up all that knowledge. Man, I learn stuff all the time watching people's content about tips like Adobe Premiere editing tips and stuff, you know? Hey, this will make you edit 10 times faster. And I'll watch their little 30-second reel and I'll start doing the thing and it makes it edit 10 times faster as a result. I've learned so many little nuggets like that. So consume that stuff. Be hungry for it. That's the next one. And then the next one I think is just enjoy the whole journey of it all. You're going to have pivots. You're going to have changes. There's a big looming change, AI, that people are talking about now. This big looming change. Well, enjoy the pivots that it's going to force you into. So instead of saying, oh no, is my job not safe? I'm just starting my career. Did I pick the stupidest career ever because now AI is going to replace that? No, don't think that. Instead, think, you know what? This is pretty cool. I got to figure out how to use this to make better work for my clients. I got to figure out how this can benefit what I'm doing. That's the journey, and that's the perspective that will make you feel a whole lot better about it than scared that it's going to replace you. It's not going to replace you if you're the one developing it, how to use it. It's not going to replace you. So be the person inventing how to use ChatGPT as the ultimate brainstorm tool for a solo freelancer. Figure out how to do that and use it like that, and then it's not going to replace you. It's going to become the ultimate tool for you. And we've seen AI, just to go back to this, we've seen it, I mean, my career is long enough that I've seen everything is easier than it was back in the day. Everything. I mean, Photoshop didn't have any undos when I was using Photoshop at the start. You couldn't even Command Z to undo something you did in Photoshop. That didn't come till like 5 years into freelancing or something. I mean, you couldn't Command Z. So everything is easier now than it used to be. And it's going to get easier in the future. But guess what? There are more designers working as designers or creatives working as creatives today than there were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And 40 years from now, there are going to be more creative people working than there are today. As a result, and the tools are going to get better and better with artificial intelligence. So don't stick your head in the sand. Figure out how to use those things and be on the forefront of implementing those to improve the work product that you offer your clients. That's the right way to take it.
So yeah, basically, so I just want to conclude by saying, if someone is looking to make a career in design, just listen to someone who has 20 years of experience in the field and who has seen it all. So basically, just listen to those things, so this is a good place to start your creative journey. As you mentioned, pivoting is one of the main aspects that I keep telling other people, even my father and everything. So just a small thing about me, my father owns a printing industry that's been here for more than 35 years. So he's seen it all, from screen printing to digital printing. He's seen it all. So that is something that I learned from a very small age, because back in the days when I was a little kid, I loved playing with the ink and everything. So I got all my body messy and everything. But right now, I don't even have the chance to see ink. It's just powder right now. It's not even ink anymore. It's just powder. So So the fun is gone, but we have to keep changing with the industry so that we stay ahead of the curve. So anyone who beats the curve is someone who becomes a leader in that particular industry. So that's something anyone who's trying to get into design industry, or like anyone who's getting into this creative space, that is something you always have to keep in mind. So
good
I
advice.
guess that is So I guess that's it for this episode. So there's a good place to stop, I guess. So,
thank you. It's been so fun, man. Thank you. It's been great. I have enjoyed this. This conversation was a long time coming. Like, we should have done this 3 years ago, but hey, better late than never.
Yep. So, and first of all, I have to thank you from my side. So this has been basically, as I told before the call, this is a lifelong dream for me. And as far as I've been a designer or a business owner, this is all I wanted, basically get into your head. So
No, thank you,
this is
man.
something
That's
that
so
I
nice.
always
Thank
wanted.
you.
So
Thank you.
this is a personal checklist. So I had a bucket list in my mind, and this is
Good.
finally checked off. So
You can die
yeah.
tomorrow. I'm not trying to jinx you, but you'll be satisfied. Your life
Yes,
is
I will be
fulfilled.
satisfied. Yeah, to be honest, I feel that way right now. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, man.
So-
You're too nice. Too nice. Thank you. Thank you,
So-
and thanks for keeping in touch with me. That it's like we used to DM all the time, like I mentioned, but you were the one who kept the relationship going for the last few years and checking in and stuff, and I really appreciate that, and it means a lot to me. So thank you, and thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate that too.
Yep. Yeah, it's all my pleasure. So, and once again, for just before signing off, so if you want to know anything about us, we are available at Brew Market on all socials. And if you are a freelancer, designer, or creator, or whoever you are, so just go follow More Janta on all platforms. I guess that's still your handle.
Yep, it is. It is the handle.
So More
Yep.
Janta on all platforms, and I see YouTube is growing day by day. So
Yeah.
if you want to learn something about long form content and everything, just go to YouTube,
Thank
subscribe there and everything. So that's it for now. See you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.